We're on. Hey guys, Anthony here, one of your upline NMDs. Super excited to have an amazing lady. I'm as intrigued as you are to learn more about her. I just know she has been a real pillar for our team, for Katie and I, and as well as the company. And so I'm just going to find you, Lyndsey, and put you in the spotlight.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
How are you doing? So talk to us. I would love to hear just your journey into this profession. And yeah, just a little bit about yourself to get started.
Okay, cool. So I started probably like a lot of people, Ant, do, where I really didn't plan to get involved in this profession. I didn't plan it at all. I fell into it. And I fell into it because I thought a friend of mine who was joining a company was absolutely crazy. And I thought someone needed to help her to see the light and save her, frankly. That's kind of what happened. And I thought, this woman's crazy. I had no idea about the profession. But I got to tell you, as soon as I rocked up to this environment where people were playing and having fun, and I just fell in love with it. And it really, I fell for it hook, line and sinker, and I felt bad and I fell fast. So it was a ton of fun. You know, I did really well within my company, the company that I was aligned with. We did a lot of in-home demonstrations, so got really good at connecting with people and going into people's homes and really developing intimate relationships and having those one-on-one conversations with people. And I just loved it, Ant, and it all came about at a time that was pretty tumultuous. As a mama, you know, I was looking to find out how best I was going to generate some income. But I also needed to be flexible in my approach because I had a daughter at that stage who lives with cerebral palsy and autism. And, do you know, I was getting constantly called back from, you know, to go back to school, and I wasn't able to work. And it was just really troublesome to be in a 9-to-5. I found bosses weren't too receptive to me leaving, having only been there for 5 minutes, you know. So I needed to find a different way forward, and I just loved it. And I figured, why not? So I just kind of ran with it, went with it.
Amazing. Love it. And so what kind of timeline are we looking at that you've been with the profession?
Oh, it would have to be coming up for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 20 years. And it's just been a roller coaster. I've played lots of different roles in that time. So I wear a few different hats. I'm a coach, a speaker, and a trainer. And so I speak at corporate events. I speak and work with companies to develop training programs. And, you know, I mentor people outside of Juice Plus as well as within the Juice Plus community. So I'm blessed to really have this opportunity where I can kind of see lots of different types of things going on as well, which is kind of neat to be in that space where, and I can just kind of say hand on heart that Juice Plus is one of the most inspiring communities that I've had the privilege to be associated with. The camaraderie, the support, the mentorship, the direction and the leadership at a corporate level, I mean, really is second to none. So when Celine invited me to jump on board and come play in this playground, of course, I went, oh yeah. So it was a yes from me.
Well, we're very excited and honoured to have you. And we were chatting on the bus on the way to retreat for the NMDs. And I didn't even really understand your role and just to the capacity that you're here to help us and to support us. So I'm assuming, because I don't know, a lot of people won't know. Fill us in. What does your role look like? What are the kind of things that you can do for people within the community?
Okay, cool. So my role is to serve and support from a coaching perspective primarily. So I do support in developing or expanding programs. So I've helped Celine to expand the Success Academy. And so I do a little of that, but primarily where I love being and where I'm asked to be more frequently now is really in a coaching and mentoring role. And my strength doesn't lie in the compensation plan and the understanding of that. I mean, you guys just do the most phenomenal job there. And, do you know, I don't want to be taking anyone up any garden path in terms of what needs to happen, you know, with the structural stuff. But what I'm really, really good at and what I'm passionate about is helping people to identify and move through the stuff that holds them back. My baby really is about supporting people to move into greater levels of self-awareness, because I really do believe that self-awareness is an important part of being able to be successful in this business. And so self-awareness, both in terms of how people are thinking, how that causes them to feel, and how that drives their behavior. So it's my thing, you know, it's what I'm most passionate about. And I think that the majority of conversations that I have with team are all focused around either what's happening inside of their minds, what's happening inside of their hearts, and how those two things impact what they're doing or not doing in their business.
Amazing. Because I think when you break down this business, it's really simple. People are either attracted to the product or to the business. We speak to people, we invite them to take a closer look. So when you break it down, the actions are pretty simple. But it's that space between our ears and, as you said, our heart that really stops us from taking those actions. So what do you see, what are the majority of your calls about?
Do you know what's really interesting, Ant? I could say they're mindset related, yet I've got to say that, you know, mindset, for when people jump on the call with me, there's often confusion about mindset. And even the word mindset gives it a sense that it's somehow stagnant, it's somehow fixed, it's somehow immovable, just with the word mind and set. You know, you put those two things together and it conjures up in us this feeling that it's really hard to move, really difficult to do something with. So often when people come on the call, they're feeling really stuck, unsure as to what their next steps are, unsure as to how to shift what's going on inside of them. And they're usually looking for some guidance in terms of that, looking for some guidance in terms of how to move from where they are inside of their thought process into a healthier state of being when it comes to that. Most people who jump on the call have had some level of personal development and are often feeling really frustrated because, despite having invested money and lots of time and energy, often the people who jump on the calls with me are feeling really frustrated because they feel they should know better, they've done the work, but they're just not moving in the direction they would like to. So oh,
my bad. Well.
It's all right, I got it.
Thank you.
I got it. Hey.
Unmute someone else and I muted you. There we go.
That's all good, I tell you. So it's just really interesting. You know, people feel this sense of frustration because they've invested in themselves. And that's what I love about the Juice Plus community, is that, you know, we have so many partners who invest in themselves. And yet what can come with that is a sense of frustration itself for not having moved forward faster, more. And I get that. So some of the work that I do with our team is really just helping them to better understand where they're at, reassuring them where they're at, maybe giving some clarity on where that is, and helping them to find a path forward. But it's a path that comes from within them, and because I don't profess to know where anyone is better than they know it themselves. I'm just good at shining a light on helping them to find it for themselves. So I'm not here to tell any of our partners how they need to think and how they need to feel and what they need to do. I look to inspire them to find greater levels of thinking that will elevate them in terms of their experience of life, and therefore the zest they have for life and the determination they have for their business. So that's kind of how that rocks. Confidence is a big thing. A lack of confidence is a really big thing I hear a lot of. Women beating themselves up. Oh my gosh, if I had $1 for every call I'd done in that regard, and I would be a gazillionaire. And again, I get it, because we can have a tendency to be so incredibly harsh on ourselves. And I know it firsthand, so I don't profess to come to this space having had this incredibly straightforward ride. I think I've failed my way forward, and I've made as many mistakes, if not more, than anyone else who's on this call and anyone who's in our community, because that's how we live, we grow, and we learn. And I simply may have got up a few more times than others have, and therefore developed some emotional muscle around resilience, etc., that helps to keep moving forward. So that's kind of it in a bit of a nutshell, I guess.
Amazing. I love it. And what do you see the advantages are of partners connecting with you rather than their mentor or the people directly around them?
Do you know, I guess one main thing, and that is it's a different perspective. And that's what I often hear people say. It's not about being better or worse than, it's about simply a different perspective. And that's what I hear, and the other thing too is sometimes from a leadership perspective, I think I've heard it said many times, and you probably have too, and that is you get to a point where you're no longer a prophet in your own land. And so, sometimes if I'm on a call with someone, I may say something very similar to what leaders have been saying, but because it might come with a slightly different tone, maybe a slightly different language pattern, maybe a slightly different heart space or energy on the day, it's almost as though this breakthrough happens not because of what I've said individually, but rather what we've done as a collective unit of, gradually just sharing little bit and little bit and little bit. And I figure it doesn't matter where the information comes from. It's just so long as we do the best we can to serve and support people to be their best. And it's usually perspective. Or sometimes, do you know what? It's reaffirming what they already know. Do you know? That's the other thing. It's just a different perspective or reaffirming something. That's often it too.
But I know in my experience, you get quite close sometimes to the people you're working with, and you develop a great friendship. Mm-hmm. And it's a really blurry line to manage that friendship, business. Am I just listening to you as a friend now and you just need to download, or am I putting my coaching hat on? So I'm really attracted to this, to have you, that it's very clear, it's very direct what the call is for and what the outcome is. Same means, but just from that, as you said, and I love that you have such a vast experience. I call it the eagle eye view. Sometimes we're in the dirt, we're like the worm, and all we can see is blackness in front of us. But you flying from above, you can see so many different perspectives.
Yeah.
So I'd love to, you mentioned the word confidence. The other word I hear is overwhelm.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love the overwhelm word.
The two biggies, right, that we get. It's like, I don't have the confidence, or I'm overwhelmed. I know you could probably speak for hours about it, but in, I guess, the next 10, 15 minutes, maybe we crack one of those open.
Sure. Can I go with confidence?
Go for it.
Yeah, cool. And I say confidence because I think that it's a biggie. And I think that if anyone on the call, either live or tuning in, have ever struggled with confidence, I think what I share will be useful because it's quite tangible and easy to work with. So the first thing I'd like to share is I see confidence as a bank account. It's a personal bank account. And it's something that individually we need to take responsibility to make deposits in regularly. Unfortunately, very often what happens and what moves us down the path of losing confidence is that we make more withdrawals than we do deposits. And just like with any bank account, if you keep making withdrawals from a bank account, you ultimately end up with an empty bank account, often even in overdraft. And if you look to try and run your finances when you're in overdraft, you're going to find it really difficult. And the same is true if you're looking to run your business with an emotional bank account of confidence that is running on empty or overdraft. So I wanted to, kind of nut it out. A few years ago when I found so many people asking me about confidence, I kind of developed this idea in my head about it being a bank account. And then I began to ask myself the question, how do we make deposits and how do we make withdrawals? What is a deposit and what is a withdrawal, and how do they come to pass? So I thought maybe I'd start by talking about the withdrawals. What makes a withdrawal from your bank account? And one of the things that I've noticed that makes these withdrawals, in fact, the person who makes more withdrawals than anyone is you in your bank account, me in my bank account. So we're the ones who are withdrawing confidence on a regular basis. And we do it in a number of different ways. The most toxic of which is through our self-talk, the way in which we speak to ourselves about ourselves. So if you think about the way in which you have a dialogue with yourself, that chatter that goes on in your head, and I know some of you are really aware of that self-talk. Some of you might think you don't talk to yourself, but I promise you every human does. And so those conversations that are going on inside of your head every single day, they're either making a deposit or a withdrawal. Yet what tends to happen just by nature of us being human is that we tend to focus on the negative for survival. So our survival mechanism, that oldest part of our brain, tends to focus on the negative, both in our surroundings and within ourselves. And so being vigilant and being really self-aware of what's going on in that self-talk is important, because it's possible that you've reached 9 or 10 in the morning and you've made several withdrawals from your confidence bank account. And then you go and have a conversation with someone about the business and you feel like your confidence has just left you and you kind of wonder, where did it go? And it goes because of these conversations that we have to ourselves about ourselves. I think another great withdrawal that we make is when we talk about ourselves in a negative way to others. And that can be subtle or it can be direct. And subtle ways in which we do that is when someone may pay us a compliment or tell us we've done a great job, and we fob it off and pretend it doesn't exist. And, women are really good at doing that, where they just kind of pretend they didn't even hear it. Or, a friend will say, wow, you look fantastic today. Oh, you look so much better, honey. Or, oh, not really this old thing. I mean, there's something to be said by just accepting that and saying yes, because that way you're not pushing that away from the other person, and you're not sending a message to yourself that says you're not worthy, valued, and all of that negative stuff. So what we speak about ourselves in our heads and what we speak about ourselves outwardly, whether it's direct or whether it's indirect. And I think the thing is too, the way in which we judge ourselves, we take action in our business. And do we, cheer ourselves on because we've been brave enough to take action? Or are we always judging ourselves because our results maybe weren't quite what we wanted them to be? And that again will make a withdrawal from your confidence bank account. They're the ones that you do yourself. Now, we obviously can have other withdrawals made, and I'm sure you may have experienced people who may feel the need, and they cannot help themselves, to give you a little bit of unsolicited advice, which is otherwise known as criticism. You didn't go and ask them what their thoughts on something were. You didn't go and invite them to share feedback, but they did it nonetheless. And if you don't have a full bank account, if you're feeling a little depleted yourself, you can find that makes a withdrawal from your confidence bank account as well. And so the closer people are to you, the bigger the withdrawal. So if someone really close to you in your family was to say something about you or what you're doing, it's likely it will make a bigger withdrawal from your confidence than it would if it was a stranger or an acquaintance. And so getting really clear on the people who lift you up and who pull you down? Who are the people that give good vibes and good energy to you, and who are the people who don't? And, you know, sometimes you've got to just be really strict about who's in your circle. And sometimes it's really important to put a bit of a wall up, you know, to keep people who are not cheering you on out of your circle, especially in those early days of growing your business, because sometimes they're not helpful in helping you to boost your confidence. And ways in which you build your confidence is in a similar way in which you deplete your confidence. And so I'm a big believer that we are the ones responsible for filling that bank account of confidence. So every single day, noticing what's great about you is so important. Actually pausing during the day and taking time to acknowledge what you love about yourself is really important. And so I remember years ago, one of the most debilitating times in my life was it was a really low point. I caught myself up in all manner of things that were very destructive in my family life. I won't give you the big story today, but rather just say I found myself 25 kilos overweight. I was drinking a couple of bottles of wine a day. I was smoking 40 cigarettes a day, and I'd spent $250,000 through gaming machines. So you could say that my confidence was down the toilet, at least down the toilet. So I know what it's like to have zero confidence. And what I know that built that confidence back up as an activity that I'd love to share with you today, that has been my saving grace more than once, and that it's the thing that I go to every day to make sure I'm making deposits. And that is to focus on things you like about yourself. And the activity is 21 days. For 21 days, think of 5 things you like about yourself. 5 things. Write it down, say it out loud, and if you're brave enough and as your confidence grows, stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself in your eyes, into the most soulful part of yourself, and share with yourself those 5 things that you like about yourself. It is nobody else's responsibility to make you feel good about you. It's absolutely your responsibility. It's not your mentor's responsibility to tell you how good you are. That's kind of like this icing on the cake, but it's not what's going to fill you up so that it doesn't matter what happens, you're unshakable. That's what you're going to do for yourself by focusing on what you love about yourself. And that's just something that is really easy to do. It's a great team activity. And even today, although I don't think of 5 things every day, I open my eyes every morning and I remind myself of what's great about me, and I close my eyes before I close my eyes at night. I remind myself of the incredible woman that I am and the difference that I'm making in this world. And that's what helps to fill my confidence from the inside out. So it doesn't matter if I'm out there taking action in my business and I fall flat on my face, I can pick myself back up with emotional resilience because I feel good inside of me, because I've given that gift to myself first. And so making sure that you are filling yourself with good things about you. I cannot stress that enough. I really can't. And we just don't do it enough. And if you were to do this for yourself and give yourself this gift, at least once a day, I personally, morning, noon and night, pretty good time. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, like just pick 3 times in the day and think about the goodness that is you. Then you do develop this unshakable confidence. And as I say, that's a few little things that you can do. I mean, I could share a ton more with you. But ultimately the message is it rests with you. And I think what happens is at a soulful level, we long for self-validation, but we settle for someone telling us we're good enough. And there is a very big difference between you feeling the energy of your voice saying, I love and appreciate you. You're an incredible soul who's making a difference. Thank you for being the man, the woman you are today, and for stepping fearlessly out into the world to help others. Even as I say that, like all of my body goes, just lights up like a Christmas tree, because that's what your soul wants to hear, rather than just the external stuff, icing on the top, but don't make it the bulk of what needs to happen for you to build that confidence.
The team is lit up, girl.
Good.
They're loving it. They're loving it. And I know this is just a fraction of who you are and your essence, and how you can just find the truest of truth within people very fast. So what do people need to do to connect with you? Do they have to get a special promotion or a badge, or how do people get to speak to you?
They just reach out, and that's that simple. Anyone who is wanting to learn, expand and grow, I'm willing to help, and that's what I'm here for. I'll put it out there and say that I won't listen to your BS. So if you come to me thinking that I'll be someone who will buy into your stories, I'm not that person, because as Ant said before, sometimes the lines can be blurred when, relationships and friendships are formed. And I will love and respect you all. And I love and respect you enough to call you out on your BS, because it would not be loving of me to go, yeah, I know. Like, I'll give you a minute. I don't even give my kids more than 2 or 3 minutes. And honestly, it doesn't serve. So you can know that if you reach out to me with love and respect, I will do my absolute best to help you to move through whatever is in your way. A lot of the stuff, and too, I can share, a lot of it comes back to some of the stuff that we evolved through as kids too. And just understanding that. Can I share a book, Ant? Is that okay? Just in case, is that all right if I share a book?
Of course.
Yeah. It's called Homecoming, and it's by John Bradshaw, Homecoming. And it is one of the most profound books. I first bought a copy of it probably about 10 years ago. And it really helps you to better understand that most of the challenges you're experiencing right now is your younger self. It's not, and that's why it makes so little sense to people. And they feel so frustrated and they feel so stuck because intellectually it makes no sense to them. But when you begin to better understand what's going on for your younger self, and you find the steps to move yourself through that with love and guidance, then you're able to step out feeling more in control and feeling more empowered, and feeling more trusting of yourself, which I think is really powerful. And I share that book, and that's from a leadership perspective, that's probably one of the best ever books in my library. Amazing.
Love it. It's funny you say that. We were on a call the other day with a lady who was having challenges, and she'd mentioned through her story that she, I think, was kicked out of home at 14. And as the conversation progressed and we kind of challenged her on some of her behaviors, you could see she literally went back to being a 14-year-old. And if you don't get this stuff, you could be really offended and you start hitting the ball back. But it's just like, yeah, you could literally see her regress back into that exact time, because it's a wound that has never been healed. And my belief is, the universe or whatever you believe in will keep putting that in front of you until you heal that. That's why it keeps coming up.
And it's interesting, and because rejection for many people stems back to abandonment of childhood, or the perception of that. And we need to remember that for much of the stuff, childhood trauma doesn't mean that there needs to have been lots of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. Trauma can simply be, from a child's perspective, that there was a separation of parents in a family. It could be that the perception of a sibling got more than you, or that parents weren't there at your school to cheer you on. I mean, perception through a child's eyes makes the trauma very wide and varied. And I think that's what people don't always understand, is that something seemingly simple to an adult can be quite traumatic for a child. And I was chatting with a gal the other day, and we were chatting about the fear of rejection, and it all boiled down to abandonment. I chatted with someone else the other day who was really troubled with, what people thought. And that, again, went back to the schoolyard. And when people get this, it's like, oh my goodness, so I'm not going crazy? I'm not crazy. It's like, no, you're not. It's just your child is popping up and going, hello, remember me. I need a bit of loving. I need a little bit of attention here. I need you to help me. And the best thing about it is that you can do it for yourself. Nobody else needs to be that parent for you. No matter what happened in the past, you can parent yourself forward. Absolutely, you can do that. And interestingly, and another thing, I'll just share this, quite funny actually. Sometimes, the disruptive teen comes up, like it was really, really funny. The disruptive teen will come up, the teen that'll go, like this, that teen, when they just don't want to do the work and they're at home and they want to be their own boss, but they don't want to do anything because no one's going to tell me what to do. It's really funny I witness that in myself sometimes when I know I've got some things to do in my business that I don't want to do. My 14-year-old comes up and goes, yeah, you don't have to do that. Yeah. And I've got to hold myself accountable, right? It's quite funny to observe. So yeah, we have a lot of fun on the calls too. So it's good fun.
Of course, I really think what we're talking about is the greatest gift of this profession, because you could get by in a job, you can get by as a boss and go through your whole life and be so empty, so unfulfilled, and seeking all of this external, as you said, validation, whether it's people's opinions, more stuff, bigger cars, better toys. And I promise it does not fill the void. I've really got this firsthand. And so just assume you have childhood stuff there. Because for me, I was like, I don't, no way. I'm good. And it really did crack open earlier this year. So I love that you're here for us. How do people connect with you?
They can reach out to me on Facebook as a starting point, and then I can send a link to my calendar. We're just doing a bit of a transfer over, and so that I can just maybe give you a link directly once I make that transfer over to a different online booking platform that I'm working with. But in the initial stages, if anyone just wants to reach out to me, then I'll book in a time, and then I'll be able to give you a link, and I can do that later tomorrow, and you can share with the team if you choose to. And they can jump on and have a call. So I'd love to help anyone who wants to help themselves and who's looking for, perhaps a different perspective or a new voice, who's singing a similar song. I'd be honoured to serve you.
Incredible. Does anyone have a question? Just one or two, and then we'll wrap this up. Maybe unmute yourself or just pop it into the chat. Oh, everyone's shy. Everyone's afraid of getting rejected.
Oh, don't you love it? It's so gorgeous. But yeah.
I can only do it in private. No one will relate to my story.
Oh, don't you love it?
Can I put my hand up?
There you go, Sally Ann. Look at you go, girl.
I guess it's just, so one of the things that has been crossing my mind is just not having the qualifications in that health space, and wanting to obviously help people from that part of it is something that really does fire me up. So many parents with kids on the spectrum, and just how much of a difference these products can make. And obviously the preview group does give a lot of that information, but I think one of the things that's holding me back, and I'm curious about health, curious about nutrition, and I'm feeling like without having those qualifications behind me, how do I kind of move forward through that? I mean, there's obviously something sitting there that's holding me back. I guess, there's so many people that have built this business without those qualifications. So why am I so fixed on it?
My guess, can I ask you a question? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Talk to me about school.
I went to 7 different schools. I was school captain, citizen of the year, all that sort of stuff, straight A student, but just didn't have a lot of stability in my life. So I guess I chopped and changed a lot. So there was a lot of, trying to prove yourself, I guess.
Mhm. So did anyone ever tell you that qualifications and getting a degree, do you have a degree? Did anyone ever share with you it was really important to have some form of qualification and what that needed to look like?
Not so much. I guess I've had a lot of my successes and wins without all of that. You know, I left school halfway through year 10 and went and pursued real estate and was very, very successful in it. So it's not as though I haven't had success without those qualifications. It's more just, I think, just playing in this health space, being an advocate for talking about wellness. I'm having the lines a little bit blurred around, do I need to study, or is this something I need to be doing, or do I just throw all my energy into building this business and then maybe I can study later? I don't know.
And so here's something that I'd love for you just to consider, because I hear what you're saying in terms of that you have done really well leaving school and done really well in real estate and etc. Totally understand that. Yet very often what happens when it comes to qualification is not whether or not we attained it or not, but rather what was the expectation of us. And was there anyone in our life that wanted us to have a qualification that we feel we disappointed, that we didn't measure up for, that we failed in some way? Very often people who are looking to have qualifications have had seeds planted somewhere through their schooling or somewhere in those formative years that in order to really make it in the world, you need to have some form of qualification. In order to share something from a particular perspective, you need to be qualified, because it's only perception. That's all it is. It's perception. And so I encourage you to have a look there. Now, that may not be the case with you. It's not the case with everyone. So I encourage you to have a look there. And the other thing too is, you know, when it comes to having these qualifications, when we're looking at Juice Plus, you know more about the product than the majority of people who are not taking the product. And the research alone shares so much about what our product actually does that very often I think people think that it's them themselves that need to be the one with the answers, rather than allowing the tools and what's been created within the company to be that for them, because that's the beautiful thing about this business. Everyone comes in with equal opportunity. Everyone comes in with equal opportunity. You can have someone who is a doctor and a high school dropout, and they have equal opportunity in this business. It's the difference between this and many of the other professions out there that do have a requirement for a qualification. So this is the beauty of where we're at, yet we can be conditioned to believe that in order to have a voice in this space, we must somehow be qualified. And my guess is someone's planted a seed for you somewhere along the way that's causing you to question and doubt.
Yep, that's the self-worth in that space. Yep,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yep.
Is there anything you want to add to that, Ant? Because I'm sure you've dealt with this a gazillion times.
Yeah, sure. And if you speak to people who have a health qualification, they'll say this is way harder, because now people put them on a pedestal and they need to speak with a different level of authority. When the people I see do the best at this, it's just ignorance on fire. It's pure passion. It's pure excitement. And that's what's infectious. It's not, a piece of paper behind the name. It's rarely the science. It's just like, I have no idea if this could be for you. I'm heading this way with or without you. If you want to jump on this train, we're heading that way.
And I think the other thing inside of that too is the duplication factor. As soon as you start getting qualifications, what then is the expectation of those teenies that you might bring on board? Does that then mean that for them to be successful, they need to have qualifications too? And then you set the scene for everyone needing to have a qualification. It's what I love so much about this business. The qualification is passion. The qualification is a desire to serve. The qualification is a willingness to serve outside of yourself. The qualification is your emotional resilience and courage. That's what's going to get you to where you want to be. And it's what's going to give you the biggest impact.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much. We're going to wrap it up there. I know you've added huge amounts of value, and I'd love the team to, whether they connect with you to coach, I know they'll shower you with their appreciation. So thank you for jumping on. I'd love to have you on like once a quarter, if that's possible.
I would love that, Ant.
Yeah, and just chip away at different topics because I got as much value from the way you ask questions, the way you coach. So even if people are like, yeah, I'm good, just to hear you and your approach is really masterful. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Really love the opportunity to serve your beautiful tribe. So thanks for the invitation.